Thinking about moving to Port St. Lucie, Florida? Maybe you've heard about the affordable homes, the sunshine, and the easygoing Florida lifestyle that we have here on the Treasure Coast. But you also might be wondering, what's the catch? Every place has its pros and its cons, and Port St. Lucie is no different. Today, I'm going to give you the real inside scoop on what locals absolutely love about living here in Port St. Lucie, and what they don't exactly love. The challenges and trade-offs you should know about before you decide to call this place home. Stick around because some of these might surprise you. Hey everyone, I'm Spencer. I'm a local Florida realtor here on Florida's Treasure Coast. I help people just like you move to the beautiful Sunshine State, and I'd love to help you out as well. Real quick, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, it really helps me out greatly, and I'd so much appreciate it. With that being said, let's dive into what locals love about Port St. Lucie and what they don't. One of the biggest reasons that people are moving here to Port St. Lucie is the relative affordability, especially compared to places like West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, or Miami, or even major cities in the Northeast. The median home price right here is around $390,000, which might not sound cheap at first to some people, but it goes a lot further in this market than it does in other markets. In South Florida, that price might get you a cramped condo or an older home that needs a ton of work. And in popular places in New Jersey, New York City, or other northern metros, $400,000 might barely get you a one-bedroom, one-bathroom flat in an aging building. But in Port St. Lucie, that same price can get you a spacious, move-in ready single-family home, often with a yard, a 2-car garage, maybe even a 3-car garage, and a pool possibly. That's why so many people are leaving those higher priced markets and headed to Port St. Lucie. Whether they're relocating from South Florida or from up north, these people are finding that their money simply just stretches a lot further here. You get more home, you get more land, you get a quieter lifestyle without sacrificing access to the coast or good amenities. So while Port St. Lucie isn't the cheapest place to live in Florida by any means, when you compare it to more southern towns and more northern towns, it has an incredible value. New construction here in Port St. Lucie really starts at $400,000, and once you get to the $450,000 to $500,000 range, you have a lot more options open up. If you're looking for a more affordable home, check out areas that I'm in right now, such as River Park. You can easily get a starter home here for $250,000 to $300,000 range, and there's plenty of great options around the $350,000 range. You're also not going to be in an HOA, so you don't have to worry about HOA fees or CDD fees. Think of River Park as a huge neighborhood in Port St. Lucie. This is really where Port St. Lucie started, so you're going to have some older homes mixed in with some new construction homes as well. And that's another big bonus here. You have options of HOA neighborhoods and master plan communities, if that's what you're looking for. You have the traditional HOA where maybe they only charge you $50 or $100 a month and they have gated security. And then you have places like this, like I just went over, River Park, where you don't have HOA, you don't have any fees, and you don't have those CDD fees as well. So Port St. Lucie really has a home for everyone. Another thing locals love about Port St. Lucie is that it feels safe and welcoming. This city really has a strong family-friendly vibe. It's the kind of place where neighbors say hello, kids play outside, and people aren't too worried about crime. In fact, Port St. Lucie has been recognized as one of the safest cities in Florida for its size. It consistently has the lowest crime rate of any Florida city over 100,000 in population. That's a huge point of pride here for the residents. Many folks choose Port St. Lucie specifically because they want that low crime, peaceful environment to raise their family or to enjoy retirement. You'll notice that when you get here, neighborhoods are quiet and well kept. There is a strong sense of community as well. A high percentage of residents are actual homeowners and not transient renters, which adds to that pride in keeping neighborhoods clean and safe. As a local realtor, I drive around this city a lot, and I always see kids playing, walking to school, families are biking together on the weekends. It's that kind of place. If you're coming from a big city where you always have to kind of look over your shoulder and be uneasy, living in Port St. Lucie will feel like a refreshing change for you. It's a community where you can exhale and feel at ease. Now let's talk about the weather and outdoor fun, because this is Florida after all. Port St. Lucie offers that classic Florida subtropical climate, which for locals is a major perk. We're talking over 230 to 250 days of sunshine here that we get in Port St. Lucie. Basically, the sun is out most of the time. Winters are mild and absolutely gorgeous, warm days and cool nights with January highs around the mid-70s. Locals love that they can barbecue or go golfing in the middle of winter while their friends up north are freezing their butt off and shoveling snow. And because the weather is so nice for such a big time of the year, an outdoor lifestyle is just a part of living here in Port St. Lucie. We have over 40 recreational areas and parks here around the town, so there's no shortage of places to take the kids or parks to go and stretch your legs. If you love golf, you're also in luck. Port St. Lucie is home to PGA Village with multiple top-notch golf courses and a golf learning center that enthusiasts rave about. And even if you're not a pro, you might find yourself picking up golf just because it's very accessible here. If golf isn't your thing, how about boating or fishing? This city sits along the St. Lucie River, and we're just minutes away from the Atlantic Ocean as well. Many locals spend their weekends kayaking on the river, fishing for the snook or trout, or heading over to the beautiful beaches on Hutchinson Island, which are just a short drive away. From kayaking in the mangroves, morning walks on the beach, boating in the Port St. Lucie River, St. Lucie offers a ton of outdoor activities. There are nature trails like Savannah Preserve State Park where you can hike and spot wildlife, and there are places like Port St. Lucie Botanical Gardens, which is perfect for a peaceful stroll. Basically, if you enjoy the sunshine and being outside, whether it's golfing, biking, kayaking, boating, or just relaxing at a park, you're gonna love the lifestyle that we have here. The city actively encourages this outdoor lifestyle with lots of community sports leagues. They have a lot of boat ramps and parks. It's no wonder why so many retirees and remote workers with flexible schedules choose Port St. Lucie. You can actually enjoy the outdoors year-round. Another great thing about living in Port St. Lucie is the lifestyle that we have here. Port St. Lucie has a reputation for being laid back, a quiet town, and locals mostly see that as a positive. Life moves at a comfortable pace here. It's not a hustling, bustling city and, chaotic like Miami or Orlando. It's a lot calmer than that. People who live here love that they get breaks from traffic jams, honking horns, and the general chaos of bigger cities. Even during most rush hour times, most parts of Port St. Lucie are pretty tame as far as traffic, even though we have been getting a lot more traffic right now than we did 10 years ago. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the negative side of Port St. Lucie section of this video. Importantly, Port St. Lucie isn't boring, it's just mostly residential. What you see behind me is most of what Port St. Lucie is. Just check on the map. This is a city of mostly neighborhoods, parks, small shopping plazas, rather than, big name stores, nightclubs, and tourist traps. For a lot of locals, that's exactly what they want. They enjoy the fact that on a weekend night, they can enjoy the quiet evening on the patio, take a relaxing stroll without crowds everywhere, and enjoy just what Florida has to offer without all of the craziness and the hustling, bustling, chaoticness that is some other cities. And yet, even when they do want maybe a little bit more excitement, a big night on the town, or a change of scene, bigger cities are definitely within reach here of Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie is almost exactly midway between Miami and Orlando, and on the map, you can see it's just about 1.5 to 2 hours drive each. Not to mention, Port St. Lucie is just 50 minutes north of West Palm Beach. So if you really want big concerts, professional sports games, a huge nightlife, a big night on the town, you can definitely do a day trip or a weekend trip very easily. Locals love having that flexibility. Live in a chill, low-key community, day to day, but be close enough to tap into those major city amenities when you want. Even within the Treasure Coast region, you have a lot of fun nearby options. You have downtown Stewart, downtown Jensen Beach, and those are just south, and they have great restaurants and more of a quaint small town nightlife. Fort Pierce, just to the north, has a historic waterfront downtown with a great Saturday farmers market. So you're surrounded by nice places. Here in Port St. Lucie, you get peace and quiet at home, but you're not isolated and you're not in the middle of nowhere. And that balance is a big plus for a lot of people. Now, one thing I hear a lot from residents in Port St. Lucie is the pleasant surprise of how much Port St. Lucie has been developed. This city has grown a ton in recent years. We're now around 250,000 people in population and climbing. With that growth has come more and more amenities like what we see behind me in Tradition Square. Locals love that each year there seems to be new restaurants, new shops, or new facilities opening up. You'll find all your everyday needs here. There are plenty of grocery stores, big name retailers, and medical facilities. Cleveland Clinic does have a large presence here. For example, there are several hospitals in and around the city. There are also new parks and new schools popping up all over the place as this city invests in its infrastructure for the growing population. The government has been pretty proactive about keeping up with this growth. For example, they're widening the roads, adding traffic lights where needed, things like that. And although Port St. Lucie doesn't have a traditional historic downtown, it's developing one of its own here in Tradition Square. Tradition, as you may know by now, is a master plan community here in western Port St. Lucie that has a lovely town square area. This area has shops, restaurants, and it frequently hosts community events like food truck invasions, outdoor concerts, farmers markets, and holiday festivals. Locals absolutely love these new events that are popping up. It gives a real sense of community. And on any given Friday night, you might head to Tradition Square behind me and find a free concert, a free movie night in the park with families. Maybe you're having a picnic, things like that. There's also the Civic Center on the east side of the town, and that holds events and expos. And we do have places like Riverwalk Boardwalk along the St. Lucie River, where sometimes they have river nights with live music and food. So while Port St. Lucie is quieter than big cities like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, it's not like there's nothing to do here. There's always a local festival, art show, a little league game to check out. Also, sports fans love that they even have the New York Mets spring training here, host at Clover Park each spring. That's a big deal for baseball fans in the town. And all of these amenities and events have really added to Port St. Lucie's character, especially in the last decade. Locals enjoy a growing variety of dining options. Yes, lots of the popular chains, but also unique mom and pop eateries that are popping up all over town. And they love the growing list of recreational activities that are popping up as well. The city is working on developing that official downtown area in the coming year, so we're all excited to see how that turns out. But even now, living in Port St. Lucie means you have a lot of the benefits of a growing city with new things to enjoy, while still retaining that easygoing vibe that made you move here in the first place. Now, before I switch over to talking about the challenges or the hate side of the equation, I want to say this. I love helping people making that move here to Port St. Lucie, and I know it's a big decision. So if at any point you're thinking, hey, I'd like to learn more about this amazing town that Spencer's talking about, or if you have any specific questions about moving here to Port St. Lucie or Florida, please reach out. I'd love to help you like I've helped many clients before. All right, so we covered a lot of the good. Now it's time for the other side of the story. What do people hate about living here in Port St. Lucie? Or at least, what are the downsides that locals will candidly admit? No place is perfect, and in the spirit of honesty, here are some things that can be frustrating about life here in Port St. Lucie. I'll tell you what though, most locals take these in stride as trade-offs for all of the good stuff that you have, but you should definitely know about these anyway. First is going to be the limited nightlife and entertainment. Now, remember how I said Port St. Lucie is peaceful and residential? Well, that can be a double-edged sword if you're someone who craves a vibrant nightlife or a trendy art scene or lots of cultural events. You might find Port St. Lucie a little bit too quiet. Like I said earlier, there's no real downtown that's full of bars and clubs here in Port St. Lucie, and that's something a lot of people do complain about, especially the younger folk or the people that are more used to an active, vibrant nightlife. After about 9 or 10 p.m., things really do start to quiet down and wind down here in Port St. Lucie. We've got plenty of restaurants, a few sports bars, and some local breweries and pubs, but we're not talking about South Beach here or even downtown Stewart vibes. For concerts, high-end shopping, live theater, things like that, locals know that they're going to be likely driving to West Palm Beach or beyond. Even something like a traditional shopping mall here in Port St. Lucie doesn't really exist. The nearest big mall is the Treasure Coast Square in Jensen Beach, which is only about a 30-minute drive south. Some people say there's nothing to do here, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but I do get what they're trying to say. So while you'll have those community events like I talked about earlier, the nightlife here is just not the best and it's pretty slow. That being said, a lot of people do move here because it is pretty peaceful and quiet. But if you're a night owl or you thrive on that constant stimulation or you just love nightlife of a bigger town, this is something you should definitely consider before moving here to Port St. Lucie. Number 2 on the downsides here of living in Port St. Lucie is going to be job opportunities. This is another one that's pretty important, especially if you're not retired or if you're working remotely. Port St. Lucie has grown rapidly, but the job market hasn't been fully caught up yet. There are jobs in places like healthcare, education, construction, and retail, and there are bigger employers like the Cleveland Clinic and Amazon. They do have a big presence here. But if you're looking for high-paying careers in tech, maybe in finance or a large-scale corporate job or other opportunities like that, they may be limited, and you definitely should do your research before moving down here. Many locals either commute south to West Palm Beach or work remotely to tap into better paying positions, or sometimes others just adjust to the lower local wages in exchange for a more affordable lifestyle. If you already have a remote job or plan to retire here, it's not really a concern. But for people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s looking to advance their careers, the options may start to feel a little narrow here in Port St. Lucie. That's something locals talk about. They love living here, but they wish they didn't have to drive an hour to work or settle for lower wages or a job outside of their desired field. The next con about living here in Port St. Lucie is going to be the rapid change of its identity and the rapid growth it's having. For example, none of this around me was here 5-10 years ago. This is all new development, and there's lots of it. Longtime locals, especially those who moved here 15 or 20 years ago, often say that Port St. Lucie isn't the quiet town it used to be. Back then, it was mostly small neighborhoods and open land. Fast forward to today, and it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and with that growth comes things like more traffic, new developments, and all these master plan communities being built up like Central Park, Tradition, and Wilder. Those are all master plan, huge communities being built right now, all at one time. For new residents, that might sound great. You have more home opportunities to choose from, new amenities, and more things to do. But for folks who came here for the peace and space 20 years ago, the constant construction, the growing crowds, it just feels like the city is losing a little bit of that undiscovered charm. That undiscovered charm is the version of Port St. Lucie that appealed to them back in the day, and right now it's disappearing. And not everyone is thrilled about that. Of course, growth does bring its benefits. You have better infrastructure, more businesses, more stores to choose from, and new opportunities, more job growth. But if you're expecting a sleepy small town, just know that Port St. Lucie is changing, and pretty fast. Okay, another con or pain point of living in Port St. Lucie is that Port St. Lucie is very spread out, and this city wasn't really designed with walkability in mind. It was more designed for driving. You pretty much need a car to get anywhere in this town. Grocery stores, gyms, restaurants, even schools and parks, you're gonna need a car. There's no real central downtown or urban core that makes daily life more navigable on foot. To get to places like Central Park, Tradition, those big master plans, you're gonna need a car. If you're in an area like I am in River Park, the neighborhood's just so big that to get to those grocery stores and those restaurants and those places that you want to be, you're going to need a car. Public transportation here is minimal. There are a few bus routes, but nothing that would replace owning a car for most people. Even with neighborhoods, sidewalks, it can really be a hit or miss. Everything tends to be 10 to 20 minutes away. And from folks moving from cities that were walkable or areas with reliable public transit, this can definitely feel like a lifestyle shift. Even in places like Tradition, St. Lucie West, which, like I said, they're the master plan communities, you can still expect to drive between errands and activities. On the plus side, traffic isn't horrible, at least to major cities. Rush hour does exist here in Port St. Lucie on certain roads like US 1, St. Lucie West Boulevard. They get backed up at times, but it's still, for the most part, manageable. You're not sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic for hours, but here in Port St. Lucie, like I said, car dependency is real, and for some people, that can be very frustrating. Now, another aspect of Florida, not just Port St. Lucie, that a lot of people struggle with is the hurricane season. From June through November, we always have to keep our eyes open for potential storms rolling through. Now, Port St. Lucie is on the Atlantic coast and is somewhat tucked away from the curve of the coastline, so we typically don't get hit by hurricanes head on every year, but we certainly can, and we certainly have, and we've seen big storms here. Locals will tell you all the time about Hurricane Francis and Hurricane Jean that rolled through. They rolled back to back in 2004, and more recently, we prepped for Hurricane Dorian, which luckily missed us. Dealing with the threat of hurricanes is something that you do have to take seriously, but if you're well prepared, I wouldn't worry about it a whole lot, if that makes sense. One thing to quell your fears is you have a lot of time to prepare for a hurricane. You have weeks or days to prepare, and for things like a tornado, which is very deadly, and places like the Midwest can just get wiped out, whole towns, tornadoes, you really don't have any time to prepare. So at least for hurricanes, you have days, if not a full week to prepare. But living in Florida, that does mean that you will likely spend some time putting up shutters, stocking up on supplies, or maybe even preparing to evacuate if we do get hit exactly head on. Some years it's all stress and they miss us, and other years we do get, power outages, down trees, other minor damage, and maybe some road flooding. The upside is Florida homes are built for this. Unlike most parts of the country, our homes here are solid concrete block, especially the newer ones, and the city has solid emergency plans in place. Many locals invest in generators, they stay stocked up on supplies, and most people just ride it out. It's not fun, and some people really hate it if they have bad anxiety, but for the most part, it's just a thing that you have to put up with if you live anywhere in Florida. It's no different than tornado season in the Midwest and huge snowstorms up in the north. It's nature, and that's just what it throws at you. Let's keep it rolling to another con that Port St. Lucie has, and really all of Florida has, and that is the insane heat that we can have here in the summers. Port St. Lucie's climate gives us mild winters, but on the flip side, it gives us long, hot, humid summers. From May through about September, it's not just warm, it's pretty steamy, often in the 90s with humidities that can take your breath away. Locals joke that here you don't really need to check the temperature. After it gets a certain level of hot, it's just hot. And oftentimes the temperature is misleading. You should definitely check the heat index, which often pushes over 100 degrees Fahrenheit once humidity is factored in. If you're not accustomed to tropical weather for those first few summers, it'll definitely be an adjustment for you. You'll find yourself running the AC pretty much 24/7. You'll plan outdoor activities early in the morning or in the late evening. And yes, you'll probably break a sweat just by walking to your mailbox in July. Along with the heat comes our thriving bug population, and guess what? They love to live right here on the river in these mangroves. We also have mosquitoes, fire ants, palmetto bugs, which are really just big old Florida cockroaches, and we have a lot more. It's the kind of place where having a screened-in porch or lanai is basically an essential, because sitting outside in the evening without one of those often means that you're going to get bit up by mosquitoes and or no-see-ums. Locals do get used to it fairly quickly, and you start to adapt. You can start doing your yard work maybe a little earlier, invest in some citronella candles and bug spray for summer barbecues, and just overall plan your outings around the weather. It's just a part of life here in Florida. Now, here's the trade-off that makes it all worthwhile. Port St. Lucie is below the freeze line, which means it's one of the rare places in the country where true winter does not exist. Our coldest months are usually in the 60s and 70s, and it's not uncommon to wear shorts and flip-flops in January. During the nighttime, it can drop a little colder, 50 degrees on occasion, and that's a huge reason why many snowbirds and permanent transplants choose this part of the Treasure Coast. While friends and family up north might be shoveling snow and freezing their butt off, you're all golfing, walking on the beach, and enjoying the outdoors. But I won't sugarcoat it. If you absolutely cannot stand the heat or humidity, this might not be the place for you. Some people spend much of the summer indoors and rely heavily on their AC. The good news is everything here is built for the heat. Your house, your car, and every store that you go into will have their AC blasting. You just have to accept that Florida summers are hot and intense. If you can handle the sweat and the occasional gator sighting and the bugs in the canal, you'll fit in just fine. So there you have it, everyone. The good, the bad, and the honest truth about living here in Port St. Lucie. People love the affordability, the safety, the outdoor lifestyle, and the growing amenities. But the trade-offs, like I said, are the heat, the hurricanes, the quiet atmosphere, and the car-dependent layout. For many, the pros outweigh the cons. It just depends on what you're looking for. If this video did help you get a clearer picture of what life is like here in Port St. Lucie, go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me out and I greatly appreciate it. I post weekly videos about the Treasure Coast and Florida real estate in general, so you don't want to miss what's coming next. And if you're thinking about making a move to Port St. Lucie or anywhere nearby, feel free to give me a call, text, email. I'd love to help you out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.